About 2 weeks ago, Prince Harry stood in a Birmingham television studio, giggling with Alison Hammond on ITV's This Morning, talking about how his kids love Junior Bake Off. Cheeky, warm, the Harry that Britain used to adore, rolling out the charm like the last several years never happened. And it all looked so casual, so unplanned, so wonderfully spontaneous. It was none of those things. Behind that lighthearted chat sat a calculated arrangement, one that royal correspondent Neil Sean has been tracking closely. According to Sean, the real reason Harry sat down with Alison Hammond had almost nothing to do with charming daytime viewers. ITV is negotiating to secure exclusive broadcast rights to the Invictus Games 2027 in Birmingham, and Harry's appearance was positioning for that deal. He was the front man, the face sent out to smile for the cameras while the actual bargaining happened elsewhere. Sean put it plainly. Harry is very keen and almost there to do the deal, he reported. Not him, but the people around him, naturally. Read that again. The people around him. Harry has become, in Sean's words, a court jester sent out to perform, precisely because he is not trusted to close deals himself anymore, not after the legal catastrophe we will get to shortly. Notice who was not in that studio. Meghan. Journalists who covered the Birmingham event said he was terrific on the floor, kidding around, doing the thing his brother William has never quite mastered, and that glimpse mattered because it was aimed at an audience of one. Sean says the whole exercise was designed to send a message to Harry's father. The idea, in Sean's telling, was to show his father that, look, I can do this stuff. I'm good at this. I could come back and do wonders for the royal family. That is the subtext of the giggling and the hugging. A prince auditioning for the role he abandoned. A man who walked out on his post now knocking on the door, hoping the king is watching. Harry left the royal family with a purpose still in his hands. The military connections, the charity patronages, the Commonwealth work that meant something to millions. He walked away from all of it, and now he wants back in through the side door, on his own terms, with a television deal serving as the vehicle. You do not get to abandon the institution, spend years attacking it in books and interviews and documentaries, then treat a daytime TV appearance as your ticket home. Yet that appears to be the plan. Show Dad you still have the magic. Let the network handle the money. Keep the machinery humming behind a curtain of manufactured warmth. But the numbers did not cooperate. ITV walked into this expecting Harry to deliver, and the ratings told a very different story. The interview did not generate the clicks ITV needed. Daytime television viewership keeps sliding, and networks like ITV now depend almost entirely on digital engagement to make their money. Sean was direct about it. Very few people bother to watch daytime television on a regular basis anymore. The Harry chat got picked up around the world, but it did not deliver the online numbers that translate into revenue. So ITV faces a problem. Birmingham 2027 will be, in Sean's words, a colossal TV event, and covering it will require the network to splash a lot of cash. That means sponsors, big ones, the kind of corporate money that only shows up when the broadcaster can promise a genuine draw. ITV was banking on Harry to be that draw, seriously considering expanding his role in the broadcast, leaning on the residual affection people still feel for the wounded warrior prince. Then the enthusiasm cooled. According to Sean, ITV's appetite for expanding Harry's role shrank considerably after his recent podcast appearance raised fresh concerns about his public image. Every time Harry opens his mouth in an unscripted setting, he creates a new liability. The network that wanted to build a broadcast around him started to wonder whether he was an asset or a risk. Look at the calculation from both sides, because it reveals exactly how transactional this whole thing has become. ITV hoped that by supporting Harry's Birmingham interview, the network could lock in those broadcast rights on favorable terms. Harry, meanwhile, hoped the appearance would pressure King Charles into attending Invictus 2027, or at least sending a video message. Sean spelled out that pressure play. The reconnection with his father, the public warmth, all of it puts more pressure on the king to actually either attend, or indeed he could get away with sending a video message. Two parties trying to extract maximum value from a relationship that neither fully controls. The Invictus Games, a genuinely good thing built to honor wounded servicemen and women, reduced to a bargaining chip in a game of use and optics. That is what happens when a prince trades his purpose for a portfolio. The ITV negotiation was not the only deal Harry had working behind the scenes during that UK visit. There was another plan taking shape, one that reaches far beyond television, and it involves a property most people have never even seen. The Daily Mail's Alison Boshoff broke reporting that landed like a bombshell. Sources close to Harry told Boshoff that the veil is lifting. Harry, the reporting claims, never actually wanted to be estranged from his family. The explanation for why he went along with the rupture is one sentence, and it is brutal. When he was madly in love with Meghan, he was happy to go along with whatever she had to say. Rob Shooter, who chased the story down after reading Bossoff's piece, confirmed the shift. People close to Harry are saying he loved being back in Britain. That is who he is. He grew up there. Those are his people. He knows how that world works in a way he never will in California. Shooter put it simply, when you go back to the place you grew up, it smells different. Everything feels right, because those are your people. California, he noted, is a very alien place for someone who grew up with gloomy weather every day. Now the Portugal property starts to make strategic sense. Richard Eden broke the original story of that home, purchased near Princess Eugenie and her husband Jack Brooksbank. The purchase gave Meghan a golden visa, granting her visa-free access to Europe, something she never secured through British citizenship because she simply did not stay long enough to complete the process. Eden foresaw exactly how the property would function, not just an investment, a staging post. The plan, as Rebecca English described it on Palace Confidential, is a halfway home, a base across the Atlantic that lets the family dip in and out of the UK more as they see fit. And there is the phrase that gives the whole thing away. Half in, half out, the exact arrangement that was proposed and rejected before Megxit. Harry wants the benefits of a working royal without the restrictions of one. He wants proximity to the crown without the discipline the crown demands. It failed the first time because it was never workable, and now it is being floated again through a Portuguese back door. The geography has changed, the proposal has not. The palace sees it coming. Inside those walls, courtiers have a nickname for Andrew and Harry. Kate Mansi of The Times reported it. The Dukes of Hazzard, two men described as flashpoints for King Charles's reign, sources of reputational problems and familial problems. Rebecca English issued the warning directly on Palace Confidential. I think the palace do need to be alive to the fact that there is a lot of concern that that meeting will be used as a way to inveigle themselves back into this half-in and half-out role. Not in the short term, English clarified, but the long game. The slow creep back toward a status Harry surrendered and now wants returned. Every attempt to revive the half-in, half-out proposal only reminds everyone why it was rejected in the first place. You do not get to leave, spend years burning the goodwill you built, and then ask for your old room back with better terms than before. The intervening years of books, interviews, and legal battles have made it more unworkable, not less. But there is another crack showing in the Sussex operation, and it is one that royal watchers associate with something far more personal than any property deal. Rob Shooter's reporting turned up a detail that changes how you read everything else. Harry and Meghan now run separate press operations, two camps, briefing journalists independently, often contradicting each other in real time. Shooter has seen it before, up close. He was Jessica Simpson's publicist when her marriage to Nick Lachey fell apart, and he watched the two camps brief reporters completely different stories. That was how he knew, before anyone announced anything, that the marriage was under serious strain. The same signal appeared with Bill and Hillary Clinton during their rockiest stretch. When two rich, powerful people stop coordinating their story, the crack is already visible to anyone paying attention. The contradiction Shooter pointed to is almost comic in its clumsiness. Harry's camp put out that the whole family would visit Britain and stay at Buckingham Palace or at Althorp. At the very same time, Meghan's camp was telling reporters not so fast, she had not committed yet. Two versions of the same trip, leaking from two sides of the same marriage. Kate Mansi confirmed the same experience from her own reporting. I'm hearing different things now from the Sussexes, she told Kinsey Schofield. If I call my sources close to Meghan, they often tell me stuff that my sources close to Harry don't know about. Two households, two stories, one operation that increasingly cannot get its travel schedule, let alone its narrative, aligned. Then People magazine, historically Meghan's friendliest outlet, published something that made a lot of people laugh out loud. The claim was that Meghan has always let Prince Harry lead when it comes to the royal family. Always let him lead. This is the same Harry who told Oprah he did not even know he was trapped in the royal family until Meghan pointed it out to him. The rewriting of history is so blatant it insults the audience's memory. So what does the sudden shift in messaging actually tell us? The power dynamic has flipped. 5 years ago, Meghan was the savior, the one who arrived to rescue Harry and carry him to superstardom in America. She believed she could do for him what Kris Jenner did for Bruce Jenner, take someone with an existing platform and turn it into an empire. None of it worked. And now, as Shooter put it, Meghan has realized what actually made her famous, her connection to royalty. That connection runs entirely through Harry, which means Harry, for the first time, holds the leverage. If a return to the royal fold is possible only under King Charles, and only without Meghan front and center, then Meghan has to play along or risk being left behind. The People magazine spin, the sudden claim that she always let Harry lead, reads less like a statement of fact and more like a woman repositioning herself for a negotiation she did not see coming. and the messiest evidence of that dysfunction played out over where, exactly, Harry would sleep during his UK visit. The palace offered Harry accommodation at Buckingham Palace, with a deadline attached. Harry missed the deadline. Then on Saturday, he formally declined. Then, later that same day, he reversed himself and asked to stay after all. The palace said no. Kate Mansi walked through the whole sequence, and the palace's reasoning goes far deeper than wounded pride. Part of it was practical. Staff had been told they could move on to other rotas, and the palace did not want to execute an embarrassing U-turn. But the deeper concern was constitutional. Officials worried that Harry might use his time under the king's roof to deliver a statement attacking the courts, creating what Mansi called constitutional discomfort. Sit with the scenario the palace feared. Harry, sleeping at Buckingham Palace, issuing a public statement that trashes the king's own courts. How could a message like that come out of the sovereign's residence? The palace had watched Harry's pattern long enough to know the risk was real, not hypothetical. The palace's instincts proved correct almost immediately. Within 20 minutes of receiving the court judgment against him, Harry released a statement calling it a whitewash. 20 minutes. The judgment ran 436 pages. Kate Mansi, who was in the room, watched Harry glancing at a device in his lap, clearly reeling. Nobody digests 436 pages in 20 minutes. This was a reflex, an attack on the legitimacy of the king's courts fired off before the ink had dried. After that statement landed, palace officials felt what Mansi described in one word: vindicated. A palace source told Mansi the reasoning was simple. We could not have had that sort of statement coming out of Buckingham Palace. The palace shielded the monarchy from his recklessness, and his recklessness proved they were right to do it. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern. And yet the king still met with him. Harry, Meghan, and the children saw Charles at Highgrove despite all of it. The palace deliberately released confirmation of that meeting, rather than letting the Sussexes leak it first, controlling the narrative with a small but deliberate chess move. Robert Hardman made the point clearly. The king does not want to play strategy games. He is simply trying to be a father and a grandfather, doing it with more patience than most people in his position would manage. Because there is a financial reckoning coming, and it may be the pressure point that explains everything else. In roughly 2 weeks, Harry faces a costs hearing that could leave him owing a significant sum, following what Neil Sean called his disastrous defeat in the Daily Mail case, a loss so complete that Justice Nicklin dismissed every single claim across all 436 pages. Not some claims, every one. No evidence found for anything Harry and his fellow claimants alleged. Behind the scenes, Sean reports, Harry has been putting out the feelers, looking for group support or a coordinated response among the other claimants. What he found was blunt: zero help. The people who were supposedly in this fight together have quietly stepped back, and Harry is left holding the consequences alone. The damage runs deeper than the financial exposure. This judgment is a significant blow to Harry's credibility as a moral crusader. You cannot present yourself as a righteous warrior taking on a corrupt press when a British judge examines your case in exhaustive detail and finds nothing there. Kate Mansi put it starkly. There is no way to read that judgment and conclude Harry had a point, because on every point, he lost. She went further. She does not see how you walk away from a defeat that crushing with your reputation held intact. And she noted that people around the world do have genuine respect for the British court system, which means the reverberations of this loss extend well beyond Britain. Sean traced the wreckage back to bad judgment and worse advice. Harry was assured he had a winning case, encouraged by a circle that included prominent names, unable to be shifted off the plot once he seized it. The result exposed what Sean called his poor judge of character and bad business acumen. Those are not small flaws for a man trying to position himself as an ambassador and role model for Invictus. They are exactly the flaws that make the people around him handle the negotiations while he smiles for the cameras. And the security review he was promised has stalled. Not because of anything specific to Harry. The Times reported that Britain now has an unprecedented 9 living former prime ministers, requiring protection, all of them taking priority over a non-working royal. As one source told the paper, Harry's case is not all about Harry. Politicians enact policy and attract genuine threats. A prince who visits occasionally sits far down the list. He was told he would lose automatic police protection when he gave up his official duties. He gave up his official duties. The consequences were spelled out in advance, and he chose them anyway. Which brings us to Invictus itself, and a complication that reveals how tangled his position has become. The announcement that the 2029 Invictus Games will be held in South Korea arrived just days after Princess Anne wrapped an official royal visit there, the first such visit by a working royal in roughly 13 years. Both camps insist the timing was pure coincidence. Richard Eden made inquiries and came away skeptical of the coincidence but generous about the intent. Even if uncoordinated, Eden believes Harry's team knew about Anne's trip and waited until it was finished before making this announcement. A small gesture toward not offending the palace. A rare moment of restraint from a camp that has not always shown much of it. Birmingham 2027 remains Harry's most valuable asset, the crown jewel of his brand. Kate Mansi used that phrase deliberately, and it is the right one. When Harry was in Colorado in 2012 and watched American veterans competing in the Warrior Games, he had what Mansi called an air punch moment, a light bulb moment. He saw something real, something that matched his own experience of military service, and he built something from it that genuinely changed lives. That is not nothing. That is in fact the best thing Harry has ever done. But that jewel now carries genuine risk. Every legal defeat, every unpredictable statement, every 20-minute whitewash reaction attaches itself to the Invictus name. The timing of the judgment landing during the one-year countdown week was, as Mansi put it, the worst possible moment. Harry was supposed to be celebrating something worth celebrating. Instead, he was glancing at a device in his lap, fidgeting with his tie, trying to hold himself together in front of a room full of people who could see something was wrong. That is Harry's core branding problem, and Mansi named it precisely. He wants to be the Dragon Slayer, the courageous figure taking on powerful institutions. He also wants to be the victim, the man wronged by everyone around him. Those two identities cannot coexist. Are you the fearless crusader or the perpetual casualty? You cannot be both, and audiences sense the contradiction even when they cannot name it. The courtroom defeats do not just cost him money and credibility in isolation. They actively corrode the one enterprise that was supposed to be above all of that. The scene at that one-year countdown event tells the whole story in miniature. Journalists were seated at the back of the room, kept at a deliberate distance. Harry arrived early, received the news, and had to regroup before walking in. He stood up and carried on, and Mansi gave him credit for that. But then the pattern repeated. The camera statement he was supposed to give got cancelled, replaced by a message fired out over WhatsApp by the Sussex PR team. The next day's public engagements were closed to the verified reporters who had been invited. Meghan, expected to appear, did not show. Pull the press in to promote Invictus, then push them away when the moment turns uncomfortable. Mansi called it a ping-pong match, the ball snapping back and forth while everyone strained to find the truth. You cannot run a charity's biggest moment like a hostage situation with the media. The volunteers and the resources that went into setting up those engagements deserved better. The wounded veterans Invictus exists to serve deserved better. Which leaves us with the truth Harry has never said out loud. Every one of these deals exists for one reason: his connection to the institution he keeps attacking. The ITV negotiations, the Portugal staging post, the Birmingham appearances, all of them require proximity to the royalty he spent years criticizing. Strip away the crown, and there is no broadcast rights bidding war. There is no golden visa strategy built around dipping in and out of Britain. There is a former soldier with a good charity idea and a stack of legal bills. The palace is not a backdrop Harry gets to use when it suits him and attack when it does not, but that is precisely how he has been treating it. Kate Mansi offered the advice Harry will never take. He should stick to what he's good at. Like Invictus Games, it's very hard to criticize that. The legal crusades and the public grievances are doing the opposite of helping. They are tarnishing the one thing he built that nobody could attack. Every whitewash statement, every courtroom defeat, every unpredictable podcast appearance chips away at the credibility Invictus needs to keep growing. Harry is spending his best asset to fund his worst impulses. Meghan's absence through all of it speaks the loudest. She was not at any of the court battles, not sitting in the gallery, not photographed holding his hand outside, not offering a single supportive post through his legal defeats. Sources told people she would have felt humiliated by the verdict. Instead of standing beside him, she surfaced with holiday photos and a lifestyle brand plug. The contrast with the People magazine spin, the claim that she always lets Harry lead, is almost too sharp to ignore. She lets him lead straight into the courtroom, and then she is nowhere to be found when the judgment comes down. The palace's position, according to Robert Hardman, comes down to this. The king doesn't want to play strategy games with Harry. He cannot constitutionally intervene in security decisions, no matter what Harry believes. But he will still make time to see his grandchildren. He will still meet his son at Highgrove after the whitewash statement, after the chaos, after everything. That is a father doing more than anyone could reasonably ask, and more than Harry has publicly acknowledged. So what does the ITV deal actually reveal about Harry's future? His value depends entirely on maintaining some connection to the institution, and every public attack he launches undermines the relationship that gives him value in the first place. He is sawing through the branch he sits on and calling it independence. The network sees it, the palace sees it, the commentators tracking every move see it. Here is the painful contradiction at the center of it all. Harry needs the palace far more than the palace needs him. He was a prince with a purpose, a role, people who looked up to him, a grandmother who needed him, and he walked out on all of it. The military work meant something. The patronages meant something. The Commonwealth duties meant something to millions of people who had no one else carrying that flag. He left it behind, and he called it brave. Every move he makes now to prove his independence, the deals, the property, the crusades, only proves how dependent he remains. You cannot slay the dragon and live in its castle, and you cannot abandon your post, then demand the post treat you like you never left. Sound off in the comments. And if this is your first time here, subscribe. You will want to be here for what is coming.